I started the job a week after the rain finally let up. From the highway, the western slope looked like somebody had laid a damp green towel over a pile of broken platesfur and cedar draping basalt, alder freckles on the washouts, bright scars where slides had chewed through last winter. Cascade Pines Outfitters isn't fancy. A garage bay for the vans, a mudroom that smells like wool and DEET, an office with a corkboard calendar and a hand-drawn map with the routes our insurance lets us run in green highlighter. Forest Guide sounds like I should have a cool hat and a dog. But really it's about schedules and waivers and counting people a lot. It's being the one who knows where the bathroom is when there is no bathroom. My boss is a woman named Claire who could deadlift one of the vans if she felt like it. She wore a baseball cap with the bill salt-lined from 1,000 squalls and had an old scar that vanished into her hairline like a road on a USGS map. First day, she handed me 2 things, a Garmin InReach Mini and a laminated card hole-punched into our lanyard. The Garmin was standard. I'd used one on a trail crew in my 20s. The card wasn't. Front side had sensible stuff, heat cramps, and signs of hypothermia. What to do if someone sees a cougar? Don't run. Maintain eye contact. Make yourself big. Don't squat. A phone tree and radio call signs for Zigzag Base, Long Spur Overlook, and Cedar Gulch Gate. The reverse side looked like a prank. She writes these alligator mouth rules to scare the rookies, said Dennis, the other senior guide, watching me try not to show my face. He raised his hand. Roar, chomp. Welcome to the jungle. Claire ignored him and tapped the card with a black-taped fingernail. Your job is not to believe it. Your job is to remember it. You'll say it's hazing. Fine, humor me. If we're lucky, you'll never need the weird stuff. The weird stuff, printed in plain 12-point Arial, read like extractive notes from somebody's nightmare. If fog rolls uphill against the wind, halt party. Count to 13 slowly before moving. No one speaks during the count. If anyone insists on speaking, they stand in the middle of the group, eyes closed, hands in pockets. Do not accept items from anyone who says forest friends. Even if they seem lost, even if they're a ranger. We do not use that phrase. If you hear a whistle that does not come from your whistle, do 3 radio clicks, pause, 3 radio clicks, pause, 3 radio clicks. If it answers in perfect rhythm, you do not turn to look. Keep walking. Tell a story. Never photograph the 7th stump on the Badger Loop. Do not count stumps out loud. Bridge over Cedar Gulch must be crossed in odd numbers. If you have even, send the last person backward. They must not look down. Red thread pulled tight across a trail means step over once and exactly once. Do not touch thread. Do not step on thread. Step over thread again and you will be going somewhere else. If a child points at a tree and says, "There she is," ask which shoe they lace first. If they answer neither, pick the child up immediately and hum. Keep humming until you reach an intersection. Between 2:17 and 2:31 Broom Hour, sweeping sounds may occur. Heads down, mouths closed. If mouth must open, hum. Salt packets are in the medkit. Keep at least 1 in your pocket after dark. Switchbacks on the south face of Buckland Ridge have numbers painted on rocks. At night, only take prime-numbered switchbacks. If you meet yourself, ask the name of Claire's dog. If they say Juniper, you need to walk back 47 paces and wait for me or Dennis. No one remains 40 feet behind the group for longer than it takes to tie their shoe. close the gap to less than 30, or extend it to more than 60. Do not permit gaps at 50. If you hear your name drawn out from the Ravenno, I mean your exact name, pretend you didn't. Call dispatch for a cell check, log time and bearing. Whose idea of a joke is prime numbered switchbacks? I asked. Not mine, Claire said. I can barely count, according to my ex. The training was 2 days of walking the same trails until I knew which blowdowns we hop and which we go around, where the hillside is undercut by water and the skinny leg of the group would roll an ankle if I didn't T-warn her. We ran first aid drills with a SAM splint and a triangular bandage, talked hydration, talked severe weather plans, talked what to do when a couple decides to break up at mile 4.7 and she wants to go back to the car and he wants to go forward just to prove a point. We stashed bear cans at Long Spur and checked the carabiners on the food line across from Devil's Ladder. None of it felt spookier than retail holiday seasons. I slept in the tiny apartment above the garage with a box fan and a view of the gravel entry. Night got itself thick and felted by the second hour after sunset. Every sound had a corner. I don't know if you've slept with the constant awareness of living old trees just beyond your drywall. They tick, they have long conversations. The air smells like sawdust from a saw you can't hear. On day 3, I took my first group, 2 college kids from Eugene, in trail runners and matching Patagonia wind shells, a retired couple who knew Latin names for everything, and a father whose son's shoes had cartoon sharks on the toes. The boy kept making them eat each other. I did the script at the van before we left. Water, sunblock, bathrooms are back at the trailhead. If you need to pee, we'll pull over as a group and you'll step off trail no more than 10 paces, etc. The father nodded like he'd paid extra for me to say this. I clipped my whistle to my sternum strap and checked the boy's little backpack for a jacket. He didn't have one. I gave him my packable windbreaker and wrote it down because I've eaten the cost of those before. At mile marker 1.1, we stopped to talk about nurse logs and banana slugs and what old growth actually means. The couple told me about epiphytes in New Zealand. The college kids looked up without comprehension and then took pictures that I would later find tagged with #ForestFriends in that brash, ironic way the very online do everything. I didn't clock that until after. Nothing strange happened. We beat a little squall to the van. The college kids tipped on Venmo, and I pretended not to notice that it said for the lore tour. That night, we did a sunset run to the Long Spur Overlook, which is a nice, easy graded loop that ends on a rock shelf over Cedar Gulch. It's one of our bread and butter hikes because nobody passes out, and the light shows off the ribs of the valley. I had 8 clients. I did the script. I reminded them it would be dark coming back and we'd be using headlamps and to stay together and look at their own feet, not other people's shadows. Everyone laughed at something the influencer said about horror movies. Halfway in, the fog started. That can happen here. It was no big deal. The air had that mineral chill that means it's rising out of the gulch, like your breath in reverse. Except the wind was in my face, and the fog was blowing into my face, too. And I watched a lace of it drag upslope against that wind like it had a place to be. No one else seemed to care. The influencer, this guy with a gimbal and a smirk and brand new boots with factory creases, was talking to his phone about how the wild is medicine. Behind him, Fog walked past the trunks toward us in sheets. I felt stupid as I stuck my hand out. I need you to stop a second, I said. We're going to count to 13. Don't talk or whistle during the count. The influencer swung his camera at me. What is this, church? Counting game, I said. Let's go. I counted slowly, and the fog laid a cool, wet hand on my cheeks, and my eyelashes beaded. Somebody snickered. Then, because Claire's words were shining in my head like road flares, I said, "You." And I pointed at a woman with bangs and a jacket tied around her waist, eyes closed, hands in pockets. Come stand in the middle. Her mouth made a shape, but her feet moved her to the middle, and she closed her eyes. Everyone watched me. No one cracked a joke. I counted. The fog pressed around us, like we were moving through someone else's shower. 13. My voice sounded small. Okay, I said. We can go. We hiked out of it in 15 paces. Maybe it would have happened anyway. It doesn't matter what I think about that now. At Long Spur, we took the usual pictures. I kept them a little back from the edge. The gulch is a clean-sided bite out of the hillside, with firs splayed like eyelashes on the far slope. The bridge down there is a narrow beam of treated wood that should be replaced every other budget cycle, but isn't. Most people who fall there don't fall because of the bridge. The problem is, we have a phenomenon. You could call it wind. You could call it voices, if you were the right kind of churchy. It is a pulling sound, like someone is unsheathing a sword far below you. It comes out the way the fog does, only it's made of breath and suggestion. Hey, over here, we dropped it. The first time you hear your name spoken by the ravine, you laugh. You still count your party on the way home. We topped the rise just as the sun was taking off, leaving behind a taste of pennies and the slick pool of blue that happens right after the show. I turned to check them, and listen, I don't make a habit of counting stumps, okay? We'd briefed. I'd done my part. I would not have noticed, but the influencer was scanning and saying to his phone, I think I remember this. We're going to find the spooky stump. And he held up fingers as he passed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, I said, as lightly as I could. We don't count stumps out loud. Save it for rocks. He raised his eyebrows. Wow, that's a rule. For what? It's for me, I said. I have a condition called superstition, he said, and laughed at his own line. He kept counting in a stage whisper. 6. The path doglegs around a nurse log with a blown open heart. It's not a stump because the rest of it is still there. The shag of its hair splitting and housing mushrooms by the thousands. He put a hand on it, and his mouth worked like he'd changed his bit in the last second, like he had a new line he was practicing, and then set his palm flat just past a smear of rust I hadn't noticed before. I looked where we were going and then back at his hand because something was wrong with the angle. He was touching either a day's dry rust, or he had cut himself somewhere and didn't know it yet. Or the hell with it, I thought, and I moved him along with my elbow on his pack. Latin plant names couple were explaining the way cedar flakes off and twists. The kid in the shark shoes had discovered fungal spores beams in my headlamp and was eating the air. We got home with only that glitch and the fog count to mark the evening dot in the garage. I unbuckled the Garmin and my radio, and wrote in the log, because Claire is a stickler. Time out, time back, names of party, equipment returned, a note about the fog going wrong, which would be a story for next winter. I hesitated over the blank where you could write notes. Unusual. There's a code for the ravine voices. Gray line present. I didn't write it because I hadn't heard. I wrote fog anomaly. Counted 13 and initialed. Good, Claire said, reading it upside down. You did it. She tapped the card on my lanyard. You don't have to believe. Just do. Is that your dog's name? I asked, nodding to the rule about meeting yourself. She said, we used to. He died. I don't know if that was a joke. With Claire and Dennis, it's hard to tell. They have the Valley's exact sense of humor, where everything might be a test, and you'll only know if you passed when you see next winter, the second week. Dennis took me to Cedar Gulch Bridge so I could be the one to lead. It's a good training place because you have a problem that has to be solved in public odd number crossing. You look ridiculous sending the last person backward. No one wants to be last. People have to be told not to look down when they walk backward, which means they immediately look down. It is extremely human, that little beep of panic, and extremely easy to handle. You'll know if you have the bones for this job, if you can make a joke while you make adults behave. Odd number crossing, I said to my 3 clients, who were all friends from a tech company in Bend. We have 4, which is no good. I need a volunteer for backward. I waited. They smirked. I tagged the fittest looking woncalves like the cables the bridge was built with. Nan said, thanks. Why? He said, half laughing. Insurance won't let me say, I said. Insurance wasn't the problem. Engineering wasn't the problem. The problem was, I had seen 2 sets of prints in the dirt on the far side of Cedar Gulch Bridge once, where there should only have been 1. It had been raining. Everyone had crossed forward. Everyone had counted as they went, because that's my joke for adults. Count me a treat. I'll say 1, 2, 3, and by the time they've counted, they've done the obedience thing, and you can let them be grown-ups again. That day, it had been raining, and there had been prints, and 1 set looked a little forward of itself, like a hurry. Like the Valley had walked with our last person for a second, because we gave it even. We crossed odd. The fit guy went backward and loved it. No one looked down. No one said anyone's name. I logged it anyway, a little hash mark next to Cedar Gulch, because that is what we do for the boring days. So we can tell winter from ourselves. Then we ate the lunch. I made them pick up their wrappers for nothing happened. I say that a lot for the first month. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. The routine makes federal time. You strap on and you count heads, and you do the spiel, and you tell them something about fire ecology, and you laugh in the same place. It's insurance to say it that way when it's true. It's what you want. 4 things happened, though. Before the night, I stopped being a skeptic and started being something else. 1 was a red thread. I don't know who ties them. Sometimes surveyors flag windfall or invasive species poles with orange tape. This is not that. This was red thread pulled across badger loop chest high, almost invisible, tight enough that if you walked into it head down in your own bubble, you'd think it was a spiderweb and hate yourself. I saw it in time because my head was up and I was thinking about prime numbers. I don't know why. The rocks on Buckland Ridge are painted with numbers that hikers treat like a scavenger hunt. And I was trying to remember if 14 is prime. It's not because I always embarrass myself with that one. I spotted the thread and put my hand up and told the group to stop. They stopped immediately, like I had done a provider voice they all recognized from childhood. We stepped over exactly once. The guy behind me, the lean trail runner, laughed and started to turn around to film it for his story. I put my hand on his shoulder and told him I would break his phone if he did. He grinned and leaned into the touch the way people do when they want to be told to behave. He didn't take the second step. We moved on. We did not touch the thread. We did not talk about the thread. We did not, when the wind made it vibrate and hum like a moth-hate, turn to see if it was anything but physics. We did not test it. That is the kind of day where not testing is a bigger job than people think. The second thing was a kid pointing at nothing. It was a family from Klamath Falls. The kid had hair in a bowl that made him look like someone who should, by rights, be named Theo or content moderator. He was on my practice rope because he kept edging toward the lip of everything. Claire hates leashes. She'll use one because we work for the parents, and the parents want it, but it makes her jaw jump. It teaches them we'll pull them back, she says. I want them to learn to stop. Theo points at a cedar. It is not remarkable, except in the way all trees are remarkable, when you admit how badly you cannot do what they do. He points and says, "There she is." Don't ask me what I felt. There was no electric shock, no surge up my back. What there was my eyes sliding off the cedar silhouette like kids on a freshly waxed floor. It was wrong the way a handwriting sample is wrong. I felt an absence slotted into a shape. I heard my head fill in something and then reverse itself, as if I'd said a word out loud and realized it was nonsense halfway through the vowel. I said, like it was in the script, because it was in the script. "Which shoe do you lace first, buddy?" He turned his face up toward me, because he was 4 and very confident that people should be looking where he tells them to. And he said, "Neither," with the offended air of someone who had just graduated to Velcro. I scooped him. He yelped, "I can walk." "Then you can walk with me," I said, and I started humming. I don't like Happy Birthday, so I hummed the theme from a show I watched when I was little. His mother laughed. His father took a picture. We hummed together for the next quarter mile. The humming makes your mouth busy. You might think that's silly. You are incorrect. When we got to the intersection of Badger and Buckland, Theo whined, "She's gone." "Bummer," I said. "We'll write to her." I wrote nothing to nothing. I did log the time and the bearing in the space on the daily sheet. I hadn't known was for anything but training until that minute. I did not write it in a way that would make anyone's lawyer call mine. The third thing was the wing whistle. I have a cheap plastic thing clipped to my strap. It is black and molded, and if you blow very hard, it will give the whole valley your location. I blow it to call the group when everyone's on a cell phone at the Overlook because they don't come when I say, "Hey," and I am not their mother. The wing whistle is not that whistle. You will not have heard it until you do. It is a thing made out of the space between the limbs of the trees. It sounds precisely like someone trying to get your attention without admitting they're trying. I blew mine once in reply and then stopped because I remembered the card. I clicked the radio 3 times, paused 3 times, paused 3 times. There was a fizzling answer like pine needles compressed in a sleeping bag zipper. It clicked back at me in time. That was not quite time. It kept the pattern, but in the wrong place, like a drum solo by someone with excellent ears who has never had a body. I did not look. I have not, at time of writing this, looked at a wing whistle. I told a story about how nurse logs hold water like sponges, and the whole group found me very soothing and walked faster to keep up. The fourth thing was the laminate at Junco Lookout. Get there by leaving the tourist trails and taking an old maintenance road that is not on the client map. We go to Junco to nap when we have 15 between tours and the vans are hot. It's a little box with a deck and a padlocked door and a clipboard inside with carbon paper forms the county forgot to collect. The forms are ICS 214 activity logs, the same as the one I fill out for Claire, but these are written by hands that wanted to be neat and failed. The forms begin in 2003 and go to 2019. They stop there. There is a 1.5 year gap of empty paper, like a bite. Someone taped a page inside the door, back when the glass was clear and not pebbled with damp. It had rules, different rules. I could make out only a few under the mildew. Don't break stride on the 4th, 9th, 15th sleepers. You'll give it a place to step. I assumed that meant ties on the old narrow gauge rails. Do not say the number of how many you have unless there is an even number, -1. What? I read it 3 times. Dennis didn't know either. Do not look through a camera at the water in Old Buckland. Do not describe what you see. Do not make a wish. Mandatory report phrase for gray line escalated behavior. Singers are active. There was more, but rot had eaten it, and I did not pry the tape to see what I couldn't read. I am not brave. I am greedy for rules and procedures. I am the kind of person who likes to know where the lines are drawn, so I can draw mine a little inside them and feel virtuous. I do not like big, stupid gestures. I like incrementals and receipts. If you're like that, you understand how a laminated page full of rules with numbers and consequences can feel like untying the rope around your own waist. I asked Claire about Junco's list, and she said, "Old list. Before my time. Who wrote it? Someone who thought it would help." Then she took a strip of duct tape off a roll with her teeth and wrote on it salt and stuck it to the inside of my helmet. "You don't need to get cute," I said. "Not cute," she said. "Practical. You'll forget if we get busy. Grab a couple of restaurant packets from the medkit. You want me to tear a salt packet in my mouth at 2 a.m. in the woods like a deer. I want you to keep your mouth busy. If you taste salt, swallow. Don't spit. Why? What does the salt do? It gives your mouth something that is not a word," she said. And then we had to go meet a bus. None of those 4 things did anything dramatic on their own. You could fit them into a day and a life without bruising anything. They just started to align. Like you had been walking in a drift and your feet, where other feet had been. I didn't actually break a rule until a weekend. The power went out in town and everybody from Portland decided to go find fall colors. Our phone lit like a pine cone after lightning. We double booked and then triple booked and then told people they could follow our signs and take a self-guided if they insisted. An influencer returned. A different one. She had a mic on a cord that made her look like she could announce a boxing match. Her face was dewy. Her hands were soft. Her boots were wrong. I did not judge her. It took me a long time to buy the right kind of socks. We did badger loop with lots of cutaways for content. She told me she wanted stories that felt authentic, but not spooky. We're not doing woo-woo. There's a lot of woo-woo people in Oregon, I said. We mostly do wet. She laughed and filmed me saying it again. At the fork, she asked if the rumors about the seventh stump were true. What rumors? I asked, like a clown. She smelled it. Predators smell the thing you are trying not to think about. Online said there's a haunted stump and the park won't let you take pictures of it. We don't allow photography in the bathroom either, I said. Let me list all the haunted toilets in the valley. The stumps on Badger Loop used to be trees. That's how it works. You can find the saw marks if you look with your whole attention. I have accidentally counted them in my head before, the way you flex your toes in your boot on a car ride out of boredom. It is difficult now not to think about the number 7 when you are on that loop. It arrives in your head without you wanting it. The seventh stump is not remarkable, except that it happens there, at a bend, and the light through the alder makes stripes. And you can see the river if you put your cheek near the duff and squint. She knew which one it was just by scouting. She made a sound that would read good on a video's auto captions and put her phone down to frame it. I did the thing I was trained not to do. The thing the bright card on my chest says not to do. I touched her shoulder with 2 fingers and said, "We don't." She shrugged me off like I was a fly and took 4 pictures in quick succession. I wish I could tell you this is when blood ran out of the stump or her camera melted, because then the story would have the kind of punctuation you expect. Nothing like that happened. Her face went still, though, when I asked everyone to move on. She was longest to follow the group. She unfastened her wind shell like she was very hot all of a sudden. At the spur trail, she asked if we could do a quick extra loop. "We need to get you to the van," I said, out of habit. "We've got a long day." She looked me dead in the face and said, "Juniper," like she'd practiced it in the mirror. I did not understand that for the half second you get, during which you have a choice about whether or not you will have a story. Then I understood what she had said, and my body took a half step forward. That was not my decision. And I said, like a script I had learned under sodium lights, "We'll actually be pausing here to wait for my colleague. It'll be 47 steps back that way." I smiled with my mouth stretched and very nice. I pointed down the trail with my radio hand. She turned her head in too much of a circle. That is the only thing I can say that will communicate the wrongness. She rotated like a child, turning a cardboard cutout across an axis that did not belong to a human spine. The rest of the group didn't see it because I caught them. I am not bragging. I flashed the park ranger voice I was told never to use on paying customers. "Everyone eyes on me. Put your heels together. We're going to take a breath. Ready? Feet together." They laughed and obeyed because I sounded like their better elementary schools. And I counted in -2-3-out-2-3. When I looked back, she had already gone 47 paces down the path, because my mouth decided that had been the instruction, even though that was for me and not her. She went, and then suddenly subtraction wasn't. There are curves, and there are curves that take you around something. That trail has curves you can see into, and in that curve there was not a person where there had been one. And the hair on my forearms laid down completely flat with a unanimous decision. I called dispatch. It's not 911, it's Claire or Dennis or whichever one of them is at the desk. "We've got a separation," I said. Badger Loop. I'm holding 6. It didn't feel like a separation, Claire said. Her voice was like a sound check on the river. Make a copy of yourself. I'm not in the mood for jokes. Neither am I, she said. Make a copy of yourself. Walk backwards. 47 steps. Without the group. Radio me at 20. She said it fast, as if the instructions were strobing across her retinas, and she was just reading. If you hear your own name in the wrong mouth, you do not look. I broke the stump rule, I said. I have an older brother. It's the same voice. We'll yell at you later, she said. Get off the radio until you've done it. If you are the sort of person who wants to know anything about who you are, try to walk backward down a trail in the gloaming while you count, and your mouth is not allowed to be open because you don't want any names to get in. The red dogwoods were 2 shades darker than the dirt. Halfway to 20, I could not feel my feet, which is how panic says hello. At 20, I clicked the radio 3 times, twice, 3 times, like the wing whistle, because Dennis said sometimes they back off when you do that. Nothing answered. I kept walking. At 47 I stopped, and then looked, because I am not a hero, and I am not a liar. The loop has ferns, sorrel, as slick as coins, and one bad alder arc you always hit with your shoulder if you're not looking. No one was in the trail except someone wearing my jacket. I watched myself take a breath and put his hand out like he was checking for rain. It took a half step toward me. I did not ask about the dog. I had thought God help me. You will think this too, that the rule was about doubles, like in movies, and the trick would be the name of a thing only we know. You will make a jaunty little plan about outsmarting the language, about getting something on the record. When you are there, if you are ever there, the word we will be very loose. The version of me in the Bend looked older or younger by a day and a half, which is not an age you can see until you know exactly how many times you shave in a week, or how your nails chip when you forget gloves. He brought his hand to his mouth like he was about to hum. He could see my thinking. He smiled in a way I have done in photographs where I don't recognize myself. It felt like a yes. I knew, without the part of me that reads cards, not to speak. But I wanted the dog rule to be a shield. Or maybe the bad part of me wanted to see what would happen. I said, "What's Claire's dog's name?" He didn't answer. He didn't open his mouth at all. The radio in his hand clicked 3 times, paused 3 times, paused 3 times. I think I did scream, but not with voice. It was like my body unclenched a sound and let it out without me. I turned. I walked back toward the group, counting out loud because I knew my voice would be my voice, even if the counting wasn't numbers. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Then I saw that the kid with the soft boots had moved out of the circle and was leaning like a tourist who wanted better reception on his phone. "Back to me," I said. "Now." He moved. No one else tried to. Adults are very obedient when they know they should be. I checked noses and ears because the laminated card had added in a Sharpie in Claire's handwriting, "Check for red." And that is how you know someone got hurt and learned a new rule. No nosebleeds. No ear bleeds. I called dispatch and said, 6 hole on Badger, advise. Link up at Junco. Claire said, "I'm moving. Do not do prime numbers unless you have to. Do not break stride. Do not name anything." I didn't ask her about the woman who had been the 7th stump photographer and now wasn't anything. I didn't ask what she had been. I didn't ask about myself. I moved them like the ballerina classes I took as a kid. In a hectored line, everyone's heels kissing the trail through the ferns. The light thinned like milk. We made it to Junco in an hour that was 20 minutes long. Dennis was there with a headlamp he'd clipped to the doorframe. He counted us by touching each person's shoulder. He did not ask their number. He did not ask mine. He fed us water and crackers like we'd completed an endurance event. He asked if anyone had heard singing. I have never been so relieved to say no. Claire arrived later, with a man who had the wrong kind of jacket for our weather. He looked crisp. He moved like a person who would get into a car with a file folder and not into your day. He had the smell of an office that doesn't admit to its coffee. That is what I remember most about him, that his shoes looked defiant about the dirt they were enduring. "I'm Mather," he said to me, like the last name would open my door. District. I have never said the word sir to a person from the Forest Service and meant it, and I did not break my streak then. He flashed a badge I did not have the experience to identify. He asked me to recount everything. He asked me what the woman's name was. "I don't know," I said, which was true. We keep first names for logs, but I had not learned hers because she had given me her handle. He wrote down the handle like it was a name. He asked me if I had photographs of her. I told him I had a waiver. He looked at the waiver and nodded like he liked its verbs. He wiped the mildewed rule list on the inside of the Junco door with the edge of his jacket. He read it like he was skimming for his own name. "You broke the rule," he said, without looking up. "Yes," I said. I wanted to say it again. I wanted to tell the story like it was a confession, and I could make it neat by laying it on the table and letting it be heavy. He nodded once and tore off a strip of duct tape and wrote, with that government capital letters hand, "Singers." He stuck it on my radio. He stuck it on the door. "What does that word mean?" I asked. "People like to name things they don't understand," he said. "Names are glorified synonyms. It doesn't pay for the body retrieval. Your boss will handle your training." He turned to Claire, then back to me. "You'll leave this one off the 214 and put it on the paper for us. If you can't stand that, you can go work for the ski resort." I didn't write gray line in the log because I didn't hear it, I said. It felt important to confess the small thing so the big thing wouldn't make me explode. "You did perfect," she said. "Shut up now." Mather smiled thinly. "That too," he said. We did not speak the woman's name again. People like to tell stories about tourists vanishing because it proves something they already think, about how city folk deserve what they get. She didn't vanish in a way that wanted a story. She just wasn't where she had been. Her feed that night posted a reels at sunset. She smiled into it, and her skin looked fine. There were 4 comments from her friends about how she was glowing. She had a flight to catch next morning to LA, where she would be on a panel about authenticity. I know that because I read it. You do not need to tell me that none of that means she didn't exist. I know she did. I counted her. Here's what I learned to do with all of this. I made a ritual out of counting. And I stopped thinking of the rules as spooky stories for tourists. The rules became like knots. You learn one. You learn another. You realize that someone before you learned and taught. The card on the lanyard grew ink notes. "Broomhour," it said, in Dennis's scratch. And there was a sticker over the clock in the garage, where the second hand doesn't tick between 2:17 and 2:31. We tried not to be there then. We tried to be asleep in our own beds, mouths full of salt we didn't need. When we had to be on the trail at those times, search and rescue details that get called in the wrong weather. A midnight run to a ranger gate to meet someone whose car wouldn't start. We hummed like idiots and didn't exchange more than 3 words. I stopped taking photos on the job. I stopped saying the joke about wet. I stopped telling my brother the weirdest parts when he called on Sundays, because I could hear the shape my story made on the receiver, and it wasn't one that would leave anything better when I was done. 2 weeks after the Badger Loop incident, call it that, because it wants a name. The county had us do night hikes for a corporate group who wanted real experiences. I hate the phenomenon where people think they can buy reality like a thing off a shelf. Claire priced it as if it would be difficult for them. Everyone wore headlamps that were too bright. They flashed each other in the face. They laughed at my joke about how headlamp etiquette is mountain turn signals, which means nobody uses them, right? We did Buckland Ridge, which is not hard during the day. The problem with it at night is twofold. 1, there are numbered switchbacks painted in white on the rocks because someone thought it would help with the winter races. 2, if you are out late enough that the numbers matter, the urge to count takes over lively people's brains. You get a kink of chaos. You cannot walk at your own step and still be like everyone else. That is a good recipe for dropping off the side of a trail. I did the script before we set out. Keep eyes on your own feet. If you look at other people's headlamps, you'll tilt. I told a dumb science fact about cones and rods, which everyone loved because it made them feel like something was happening in their eyeballs. I did not tell them that if we got pinned by something on the trail, we would only walk the primes. I kept that for my mouth at the first switchback. A man in a hoodie that said his company's name like heaven opened his mouth to read the number off the rock. And I said very quickly, "Save it, it's a surprise," with all my showman's energy. He laughed and put his head down and did as he was told. He didn't speak. They were good at this, because it was a mood and they are used to buying that, too. Before the third switchback, the sound started. If you've worked a kitchen, you know the sound of someone sweeping at the back door when the night is mostly done. It is not the only noise. There's the pop of anisette on pancakes, the bin slapping your leg, the feet of mice under the oven, but the broom makes a thread through it all. It was that, a making way sound. It came from below us, on the hillside. Not close, not far. A line. I checked my watch. 2:19. The problem with gooey superstition is that it primes you. The problem with rules is that they do too. I will never know which brought that sound. I did not need to. I took out the salt and put it under my tongue and kept my jaw closed and started humming. "Is this a birthday?" joked a man who had been making jokes since we left the van because it was his role in his group and it was very important to him that we understand he knew it. He tried to get a second laugh but couldn't open his mouth because he had a packet of salt against his tongue, and his face was honest as a child's for a moment. It made me love him, the way people can be made better by a rule. The sweeping got louder, and then got much softer, and then came from above, as if someone had stepped around to a different balcony to watch us go by. The numbers on the rocks went from 3 to 4, and I did not acknowledge them. I used my thumbs to count primes. 5 at the corner, 7. Do not step when it's 7 if you can help it. Wait for 11 and then step on your breath. We stepped, the sweeping came down and met us, and a woman in the middle of the line stopped and put her hand out like she had just remembered where she left her keys. Her ring glittered in my headlamp beam. She looked toward the brush, and her mouth opened on the sound a mother makes when she knows exactly what she is about to find. I put my hand on the back of her neck and squeezed hard like I meant to hurt her. "He's not there," I said through my humming, and then she wept in a way that could get past salt. I got the group moving like a line of leaves in water that has decided to be a river. We finished the primes. My tongue went numb with sodium and shame and glee. When we reached the ridge, the sweeping stopped. It stopped far away, and then it stopped very close, and then it stopped in a place that was not an ear. You do not get to own how you experience it. You get to log whether anyone said any numbers out loud. The woman thanked me at the van. She made me write an email to her later with the name of a therapist in Portland I like, because the ones in the city are safer for grief that attaches itself to places. She told me the number of years. I made her say it in a parking lot and not on the trail. Numbers open doors. After that night, Claire left me a book in the garage, a blue 3-ring binder with plastic sleeves. Inside were typed versions of the Junko rules and a dozen others. Some we don't hand to newbies because they turn everything into a dare. It is a Bible made of memos, the kind of manual you photocopy quietly and then pretend you got from a training class that doesn't show up on time cards. There's a memo from 1997 recommending signage updates for public safety with proposed language: keep out of the water. Do not attempt to coax wildlife. If disoriented, please remain in place. There's a memo from 2005 about changes in singing tone between years in Buckland and Cedar drainage, which is where the word singers started, and I felt cheated to know it was just a cope. There's a report on visitor double presentations with instructions for what to do if you see yourself or a client sees themselves. Do not initiate command response games. Doubles excel at recall. Doubles are collections of your yeses. Move your body out of the place where yes would occur. There's a printout of an email, redacted like a ransom note, between a ranger with a name I won't write and a person at a regional office. We need the county to support us on language about what to call all this, the ranger says. People laugh and then they do what we tell them. It's not me I'm worried about. The kids, the reply says. You're overusing capital letters. Policy is never esoteric. If you cannot get buy-in from volunteers, consider changing the program. The email's timestamp is 2:19 a.m. There's a handwritten set of numbers in the margin of a topo mapu TM, coordinates for a square of hillside with no trayland. Above them in pencil is written pale door. I read the binder the way you read when you know reading might make your life shorter or longer, but it will definitely change what your mouth can say. I found the rule about rattles, which we don't allow, even though we sell them in the gift shop. It said, no bells. Bells say yes. I found a list of call signs we were never to use except to test the click pattern thing. I found a page labeled Forest Friends with 3 underlines and a note. Anyone using this phrase is trying to get consent. The way a phrase sounds when you are new and trying to be upbeat becomes, when you are tired and honest, a kind of prayer said in the wrong direction. You want the punchline. You want the day where I stopped believing I had a choice. It was raining in sheets. It was the kind of rain that makes your jacket an accessory. The vans smelled like boot rot. Cedar Gulch was a garden spigot left on. We got a call at 4:40 p.m. from dispatch, real dispatch, not Clare County SAR, needed an extra team at the trailhead to keep civilians from pushing up to photobomb the rescue. There was a family on Buckland who had ditched their self-guided map and gone off just a little way into a wash. The ridge was shedding. We're rent-a-cops with better boots, but we go when they ask. It means we stay on good terms. It means we get to run our tours when permits are tight. We put on the orange vests the county keeps at the gully gate and practiced our trail-closed voice. We were sent to the intersection where Badger meets the maintenance road. We were there to turn people around. That is it. We were not there to bushwhack or to be heroes or to put ourselves in any story. People think rules are fences. Rules are in fact doors. On one side of a door is the person you were when you made the rule. On the other is a person who knows a different trick. Standing there in the mess of rain, the red mud bleeding color around our boots, the cloud ceiling an arm's length above us. A man came up the maintenance road with a baby on his chest in a carrier and said, "Excuse me, forest friends." It would have been the easiest thing in the world not to hear him. He was soaked. His eyelashes had drops clinging to them like pearls. He could have come from the county team non-regulation jacket. They don't get the budget for matching except for how the word excuse came out of his mouth, the way apology comes from people who are sorry they got home late and not sorry they lost money on a gamble. I said, "Trail is closed, sir," without thinking, and then froze. Because that is not the phrase you use if you have any sense. And he smiled like I'd offered him something to sign and said, "Yes, I know it's closed. I'm trying to meet friends." Are you forest friends? My little guy is hungry. It's not safe to pass. Claire was to my right, and when I tell you she went white, I mean it. She human blinked once, and then her eyes opened too long. She let her hand unspool to her radio, and she did a click sequence I had not learned. The man with the baby cocked his head. He was older than me by 20 years and had that carpenter strength where the forearms tell you the rest of the man will be fine if he lifts the fridge alone. The baby's head was under a knit cap with little ears. The baby's face was asleep and crumpled. The baby had that desperate flower mouth babies do. The rain beaded on the knit cap and didn't soak in. "We're not forest friends," Claire said, voice very sweet. "We work for the county." She lied the way only someone who has told 1,000 true stories can, which is to say gently and with the exact pitch of a tired person. "You can wait under the shelter by the gate." "I can't see it," he said, with a tiny laugh that would do well at a cookout. "You have to help us." "Yes," I said, because that is what the card said, in so many words, not to do. I heard my mouth say yes, as if it were a rusted hinge and a weight had leaned. I did not understand what I had said yes to. I think my yes knew before my skin did. I stepped sideways, and he stepped forward, and the baby lifted its face into the rain and opened its mouth as if to drink, and its tongue moved too smoothly and quickly and then far too slowly in the same motion like a looped video. The tongue was not like a baby's. It was not obscene. It was wrong. It was a yes of a different kind. Claire put her hand on my chest without force. "No," she said, quietly. "To me, not to him." Her palm smelled like duct tape. "I need you to notice that you just said yes." "I didn't," I said. "I know," she said. "Notice." We stood in a little handmade triangle of rain between the gate, the intersection, and the man with the baby. The broom hour was not until later. The voices didn't come. The fog, if there had been fog, would have had something to do. There was only the rain and a patch of ground behind the man where the forest had shifted and offered a different crease, and my mind was trying to smooth that crease with my own hands. And the more I did, the worse it went. "You can wait under the shelter," I told him again, and he smiled with the friendly suffering of a person waiting out a system. Then his face folded like fabric and remade itself into something 3% younger and 3% older all at once, as if he were adjusting to our expectations. "I wasn't asking you," he said to me, very kindly. He looked at Claire. "I was asking her, you're new." "She knows." "I do," Claire said. "I absolutely do. And I'm not your anything." She put her fingers on the radio and did the wing whistle in clicks. It answered her. It answered perfectly, and then did an extra click like a little flourish. The man smiled like he'd heard it in a song. The baby breathed in. The rain got harder, and then it felt like rain was being placed on me, deliberately, drop by drop. It felt like standing under a hand. "Forest friends," he said, like a joke between acquaintances. "I admire your rules." "You don't admire anything," Claire said. "You emulate. There's a difference." "Words," he said. "The way you say math when you love numbers and you're teasing someone who doesn't." "Everything is consent," she said. "Not everything. A lot, but not everything." And then she said my name. She said it in a flat way, the way older sisters say it when they're tired of making the joke. I pretended not to hear. The baby opened its mouth again. I tasted salt. County SAR arrived behind the gate in a line, the way volunteers will do to make their bodies feel bigger than a budget. The man turned his head a little too much again to glance at them, then back. He shifted the baby. The knit cap didn't move. "Odd numbers," he said. "Prime numbers. Red thread. Don't say the count. You make beautiful rules." His face crooned with genuine admiration. "Thanks," Claire said, like a cashier who just heard how much you care about your points. "We made them with you." He tilted his head like he wasn't sure if that was a compliment. "You could come," he said. "It's so hard to make you want anything." "I want my van to start," Claire said. "I want my guys to wear socks that won't give them blisters. I want you to move 6 more inches back and then keep going backward until your feet get wet." "You can't see the water," he said. With a small child's offense, "I can't see a lot of things," she said. "Doesn't mean they're not there." He laughed then, a shorter laugh than his earlier ones, and took a half step forward. She stepped in front of me without looking at her feet. She did not break stride on a patch of sleepers that weren't there. She moved like she was in an old dance, the kind where the steps were clerical work and the joy came from getting it right. "Okay," he said. He did not sigh, because to sigh would be too human of him, but something in his shoulders made the shape of it. We'll make a deal. I'll take something you can afford to lose. We are stupid about deals. Every myth ever whispered around a campfire is about bargains, and people think that means you can negotiate. It's the opposite. It means the rules are the language of how you will be told to say yes. No deals, she said. We made that rule because you love them. We hate them. We're not talking. It doesn't matter if you talk, he said, smiling at me. The baby blinked at me once practiced, bad acting and, without any muscle moving that I could see, shuddered its mouth open a little wider and held it there like the beginning of a word. Claire said, "Walk with me." To me, not to him. I walked with her. It felt like walking down into a pool. He let us. He let us. That is the most terrible thing. He had to, or he wanted to. Sometimes pretending to be like you are is easier than being what you are. If I were what he was, I'd come to the gate and try to. I would love rules because they condense consent into manageable shapes. Back in the garage that night, she wrote on the laminated card with an OHP pen I have never seen her lose. She added a rule under the Forest Friends one. If someone tries to negotiate, she wrote, looking at me while she wrote, repeat a neutral observation about your surroundings. Do not ask a question. Do not correct. Do not explain. She looked up. Questions are hooks. What would have happened? I asked, which was a child's question, a test question, a question asked by someone who wants to find the place the world gives a clean A or a clean F, something you can afford to lose, she said. Like your sense of direction, like your appetite, like a day. She snapped the card back into my lanyard. Like a person on your tour who everyone agrees did something stupid. The missing woman who did something stupid by taking pictures of a stump that is no one's business to have for later. The way her smiling face still likes comments from bots that spell her name wrong. The way I go to her page and the breath in my neck changes temperature, and I get up from my chair and turn off the kitchen light because I need the dark to not see how my yeses line up. In the binder, I said. There's a thing called pale door. I know, she said. Her mouth did a humor shape that didn't make it to her skin. What is it? The place you go if you step over red thread twice, she said. Do you want to discuss it? No, I said, and meant it. I want to throw the binder into the wood stove. We already tried that, she said. We keep extra copies in my hair. We had to do a CPR class the next day. No one came to our tours because a mudslide took out the road. We rolled some CPR mannequins onto tarps on the garage floor and did the beep-beep compressions with a metronome app. My hands stank of vinyl. The garage was warm and smelled like wet socks, which is better than it sounds. We took turns being the person counting compressions and the person watching for collisions. I tried not to hear numbers as doors. I tried not to imagine anyone trading oxygen with an open mouth at 2:19 a.m. I said to Dennis, why do we write it all down? So we don't have to learn everything by getting hurt, he said, as if I were the dumbest person alive. So when I'm gone, and Claire is gone, and the county cuts the program, and the valley decides to test whether a new person can learn the trick without help, there's still a scrap of paper with a number on it in a wall somewhere. He swiped his forearm across his forehead. You think this is for us? This is for whoever gets your job when you get tired of counting and go sell coffee in town. I like coffee, I said. You do not like coffee, he said. You like rules. You like fitting them perfectly and making them opaque so people don't break them. You should be a cop, but you are not mean enough. We're perfect for you. We are little cops for something that cannot hold a pen at lunch. I walked out back and sat on a mildewed chair behind the garage with a view of the dumpsters, and the backs of cedar limbs caught low because they had grown too well and then fallen under the winter's burden like flags. I took the laminated card out and read it again. I flipped it over and read the normal side with the real medical things that have saved actual human bodies. I held it against my thigh and it picked up condensation and left an oval like a thumb. I put it back on my chest because there was nowhere else to put it. The last thing I'll tell you, because you get to the end of stories even when the thing they are about does not end, is about the day I met myself again and did not ask about the dog. We were at Junco, the old lookout. The window for panes left of the door has a spider web inside it that has not been there for 14 months and is still there. I know because I have watched it not be disturbed. There is a chair on the deck that someone left and then never came back for. There's a ledger inside with scratched out names and a pen with a feather someone taped on a dare. It was sundown. A group of teachers had made me love them for 6 miles. They were competent. They checked each other's water without asking. They had a bag of gummy bears they discreetly passed to me when I looked like I needed one. The light was the color of the inside of your eyelid when you put a flashlight to your cheek. The forest was the right way up. I looked down the maintenance road and saw myself walking toward us, me, my stride. The tiny roll in my footfall I'd never seen until I watched someone else do it, which was me. He raised his hand. We are not a wave-y profession. I raised my hand back and then lowered it. He did too. The group laughed like it was delightful and odd and cute that 2 people could have the same face in a region where everyone has a beard. He stopped at the bottom of the steps and looked up. It was like seeing a photograph of yourself where your father's face sits in the bone behind your expression. He did not move toward us the way a man would if he were about to ask for the name of Claire's dog. He waited like you wait when you are trying not to step in a puddle in your good shoes. I did not ask him a question. I said, "We have 6, which is not true, because we had 7 if you counted me and the copy." I said it slowly, thinking of the memo about how you do not say the number of how many unless there is an even number -1. I said it thinking of my own soft skull. "We have 6, he nodded. Then he smiled. The smile was mine, and the way I hate my own smile when I catch it in a window at night is a bright pain. He said nothing. He turned his face a little like he was listening to something not a frequency on any device I carry. Then he walked backwards, not turning 47 paces. At 47, he checked an invisible watch. He clicked the radio 3 times, twice, 3 times. He, too, did not look down at the sleepers. He melted around the turn the way people do when you are done telling their part of the story. The teachers continued their conversation about children who eat paste. I checked their laces. I made them do a silly stretch because I needed to hear the sound of human bodies doing something familiar together. I did not tell Claire that night. Here is the final thing the rules did to me. They gave me a shape to write in and a shape to hide behind. I made a new rule for myself and wrote it down privately on a scrap torn from a vendor invoice and put it in the binder when no one was looking. The rule is, if you meet yourself and they do not ask a question, you owe no answer. You are allowed to be an animal and walk away. We are still working here. The valley did not close. We still have groups. The numbers still love each other. Forest Friends still shows up on brochures and bumper stickers made by people who do not know what they've said yes to. At night, if my window is open, I can hear the cedar brooms on the street where the city makes cleanliness. And sometimes I hum with my mouth closed. If I wake at 2:18 and my tongue is a stone in my mouth, I eat something without names in it, and I do not look at the clock. I have started to keep my shoes by the bed with the laces tied around the collar so I can slip them on without lacing. If a kid asks me which shoe I lace first, I say neither, and all the nerves in my hand tingle with the memory of the weight of a very small boy and a very big rule. This is not a story with a monster you can point to. You cannot have the valley as a pet. You cannot close the gate. If I have told you anything true, it is this: there are many ways to say yes. We made a language so we could say no in time. If you come to hike with us, I will say the spiel. I will tell you where the bathroom is when there is no bathroom. I will make you clip your whistle to your sternum strap. I will count you like a miser counts his coins. If fog comes against the wind, I will make you count to 13. And if you speak, I will put you where speaking is allowed and cover your mouth with a song. When we cross Cedar Gulch, we will do it odd. If you hear your name from the ravine, we will not brag, we heard it. We will put salt on our tongues and taste only the mouth we got for free. And if you ask me about Claire's dog, I will hand you a cup of water and say, he died. Because in our language, that is not a test. It is an end to a sentence. It's not for you. It is so we can go on.